Hey, fellowship family, we are diving in deeper as we continue in this Psalm series. God has been so faithful every week, speaking to us. The testimonies have just been amazing of how God is meeting us in just intimate and amazing ways. So thanks for the hard work. Thanks for the investment. Keep diving in, keep digging in. There's some more treasure to be discovered as we dive into the truths of who God is through these Psalms. He's revealing himself every week. Not only that, but he's also revealing us every week. And I feel that too. This week, we've got Psalm 63. Prepare your hearts as you get your mind still to hear the word of God.
It is well because of you.
Psalm 63. You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you, and my whole being longs for you, in a dry and parched land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. I will be fully satisfied as with the richest of foods. With singing lips, my mouth will praise you. On my bed, I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night, because you are my help. I sing in the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. Those who want to kill me will be destroyed. They will go down to the depths of the earth. They will be given over to the sword and become food for jackals. But the king will rejoice in God. All who swear by God will glory in him, while the mouths of liars will be silenced. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
All right, so every week I've been telling y'all, like, these Psalms are kind of like Israel's playlist. So like the genre. So one week it was blues. Like this week, this kind of feels like the Isley Brothers. You know what I mean? It's got like a little inspirational, but then it's got a little gangster rap at the end where it's like killing people with a jackal. Like it gets heavy, which is indicative of you, Tiana. Like you, little Isley Brothers, and a little Tupac, all into one. Like that's what I think about when I think of you, Tiana. Tell me about Psalm 63, and it's so powerful, it's so inspiring, but at the same time, it's so honest and it's so desperate. Like you feel the desperation in it. Tell me why you chose this song.
I chose Psalm 63 just because it was written, David wrote it in the wilderness, and it was at a time where one of the darkest times of his life, where even his own son was out to kill him. His son was out to kill him, take his empire, steal his wives, and so he was actually in hiding. And it was one of the darkest times of his life. And I chose it because I honestly believe that we all go through wilderness seasons. And David shows this picture of what to do in the wilderness. He wasn't there just to die, but he actually showed us a way that we can thrive while we're in our suffering and while we're in our waiting and while we're in a period of uncertainty. And so I figured we could actually walk through this, watch how David lived his life in the darkest time and be able to take something from that and learn.
It's so amazing even to see Jesus through the lens of the Psalms, and he would rely on these Psalms. So these are the passages when Jesus was in the wilderness, when Jesus was walking in the earth, he would draw from these very Psalms that we're drawing from now. Tell us about how you've had to draw from these Psalms. How has this Psalm shaped you in a personal way?
I feel like since my diagnosis of lupus 17 years ago, I feel like I've been in and out of wildernesses pretty much my whole life. And I think I've had to figure out how do I consistently live in a wilderness and not forget my God, not give up on my God, but at the same time wrestle with the raw emotions of what it feels like to be in a wilderness. And so specifically last year, I found myself in a wilderness that came so suddenly and out of the blue when I got really sick really quickly. And I knew in that moment I had to make a decision. Am I gonna stay in this and just die? Am I gonna wait to die? Am I going to just survive it? Or am I gonna figure out a way to thrive right here in the wilderness, in the scariness and in the uncertainty?
How did you navigate that? How did you find your strength? How do you find the fight to fight in the wilderness?
You know, I feel like it was a lot like David. I feel like in years past, I've always had a lot of depression and frustration whenever I've come into seasons like that. This one was different. I'd had such a intimacy with the Lord that I feel like I had built up in the past year or so, just really pursuing His presence to where when I came into that space, into that wilderness this past year, I was so well aware of God's presence, that He was there with me, that I'd not been forsaken, regardless of what it looked like. I think that part of a wilderness, they naturally magnify your lack. They magnify what you don't have. And so you automatically feel extra lonely. It's why people see mirages in the desert. They know they're extra thirsty because they realize what they don't have. And so I think a lot of what wildernesses do, they magnify what we don't have. And I think we see it as we're alone. But I learned to see a wilderness as not just being alone, but just like David did, he saw it as being alone with God. You know, he wasn't just alone, he was actually alone with God. And from that, he pursued God's presence above everything else. Forget water, I want God's presence. So for me, I felt like I had to also, in that season, know what it looked like to not look for water, for hope, and for deliverance, trying to figure out how to go into panic mode and just survive, but actually look for
Now,
Jesus.
you said that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Not to look for water, deliverance, almost accepting the fact that I'm in this wilderness and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Because most people, when they're in the wilderness, they can deal in the wilderness as long as they got a clock set to a certain time.
Right.
And they know it's coming over. You're saying in this season, the clock was removed.
Right, and I think that's what we see David do. I mean, even in my life, I feel like I have no idea if God's going to heal. I have no idea, and so I feel like my clock is removed. I don't know how long this wilderness will last. And I see David. David had no idea if he would be killed any moment. But he said, "I know that I need water, but water was a necessity. But his priority was God."
Because we talk about wilderness, and people get a chance to, and with the Psalms, people get a chance to ascribe wilderness to whatever that is. So I get off at 5 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock. I got 2 more hours.
Yeah.
This is a wilderness. You know what I mean?
Right.
That ain't what we're talking about. You're talking about lupus, which, unless God does a miraculous thing, you will have. There are people that are watching us right now that are in seasons, in situations, in circumstances that don't have a 5 o'clock clock out time, that don't
Right.
have an end of the month clock out time. So to say, for those people that are sitting in something and they don't know the time, how to find peace in that? What did that look like for you?
I feel like it has to be a focus on God. You have to completely turn. David said, you know, he had in a dry and weary land where there is no water. I'm not even looking for water. I'm constantly pursuing God's presence because he's seen his glory. I feel like there's something that I think people try to understand logically of what you can do in the wilderness to make it make sense. And there's a certain part where supernatural takes over. Like I can't tell people why you don't just, you know, logically give up hope and how you can logically stand. But all I know is that as you position yourself and make God priority and seeking him rather than water, seeking him more than deliverance, knowing that he has the ability to comfort you in what he does not deliver you from, it's just as
Wait a
important.
minute, that was good. Knowing that he has the ability to comfort you in what he does not deliver you from.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge.
I think it's huge. And I've experienced the comfort in the wilderness. And it's been amazing. It's been amazing. And I see what David is saying out, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was God. He had a perspective. It didn't matter whether he was in the palace or whether he was in the wilderness. God was number one priority.
If you could opt out of the wilderness, looking back in your life, if you could opt out of that and just skip that season, would you opt out of the wilderness?
I think in my flesh, I would say yes. But in my spirit, one thing I never expected about my wilderness was how much I would miss it when it was over.
Yeah.
Because I was not alone, though the wilderness would like to tell me I was. I was alone with him. And the intimacy I experienced with him has changed me forever.
Yeah.
And so I've found myself longing, in some sense, to get back to the hospital bed just because what I saw of God in that season has changed everything about what I do and how I live now. And so would I opt out? No, I wouldn't. And even while I was in there was moments where I could feel the presence of God so strongly that I never wanted it to end, even with all the pain and uncertainty around me. And so
that's what Paul is talking about when he says, now I rejoice in my weakness. That's what you just said. You said, I rejoice in the hospital bed.
Right.
Not because I'm crazy or I'm in denial. It is because I discovered such a treasure
Yeah.
and such a strength
Yeah.
from God that it's never gotten pulled out when I'm sitting in the high place.
Yes, exactly.
I've never experienced the presence of God so if having to be that low means I get to experience the height of God, then God, take me lower so that I might experience
Yes.
you in the highest places.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And it's just like David said, your loving kindness is better than life. He says it in this Psalm 63. And I felt that, I experienced that. But it's only when you allow yourself to not just be alone, because you have the option in the wilderness to check out.
Yep.
And to get to a place of depression. And I've done that plenty of times. When you actually begin to check into God the entire time that you're in the wilderness. And when you fall out, come back in. Keep checking into God. Then you get to a place where you can actually understand how in the world David said his love was better than life.
Yeah.
You know, you get there, you see it, and it makes perfect sense.
The thing about this psalm, and it's the thing that most people probably won't like, it's the thing that's probably the most disheartening. In order to experience this kind of love and this kind of presence, you have to experience it.
Yeah.
We're so used to borrowing other people's stories and experiences and borrowing other people's faith. You got to live it. You got to walk it. You got to experience it. You can't cheat sheet
Yeah.
it. You've got to walk through it. Jesus Christ wants to reveal himself, but he won't do it if you don't show up, and you got to walk through the valley. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's everything that you're saying is saturated in experience.
Yeah.
And I think many times God is trying to give us an experience, and we'd much rather just have an exam. Because you can just stay up all night and test. No. He says, I'm not trying to give you an exam.
Yeah.
I'm trying to give you an experience. Because if you get this experience, you'll never be the same again. But if you get the exam, then you just passed and getting ready for another test. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What truth do you want people to take away from this psalm? Like, if you were to say, don't miss this. If you miss anything, don't miss this.
I would say that the wilderness is just as much an opportunity as it is an obstacle. Every wilderness is just as much an opportunity to get to know God, to seek his face, and to see him in ways you have never seen him before. And so I would say, if you're in the wilderness, don't waste it. Don't waste it.
Because God will never waste your pain.
No.
So why should you?
Exactly.
Yeah. Woo, that's good. That's good. What questions should we, or should we just speak in tongues and lay out on the floor right now?
I'm good. I'm down for either.
What questions do you have for us to talk about?
Where in your life are you looking for water when you should just be looking for God?
That's good. Where in your life are you looking for water? Are you looking for the out? Are you looking for the substitute when you really should be just looking for God? That's good. That's good. And maybe for the second question, where's an area in your life, and it'll be fun just to hear what people experiences where God has shown up in your wilderness. Where is a time, when was a season when you saw God's faithfulness in the wilderness?
Yeah.
Because the wilderness, it's a roaring lion, and its biggest strategy is to scare you.
Yeah.
And if he can get you to if he can boogeyman you and get you scared of it, then you won't walk through it. So let's just have some testimonies of victory in the wilderness and how the wilderness came, but so did God.
Yeah.
So that might serve as encouragement to someone who's scared of the wilderness. Because I'm just gonna tell you, the way we've been talking, there are people that are in fear right now because of the fear of the boogeyman, because of the wilderness.
Yeah.
Let's speak to that fear. We don't walk in fear, we walk in faith. This is not an obstacle, it's an opportunity for God to be faithful, even in this wilderness. We'll see y'all next time.